All right, good morning, guys. Quick sound check, make sure everything's working. You guys can hear me and quality's good. We got about 3 seconds here till the bell. $73. Boom, that's perfect. I'm going to take one shot at a long opportunity here. We've pushed down right into kind of the 73.30, 75s right off the open there. And I want to take a stab here to the long side. So I went ahead and as soon as I saw that, stepped in, got filled at 29.50 there on a long for the Nasdaq here. Now I'm going to keep a really tight leash on this. I'm going to give this just a few points here. It is the first test down to this level. We're opening right at it. And again, we've got a lot of room to the downside. So if this does not hold right here and we start pushing lower, you know, we've got room all the way down to 72.87s here. So I'm going to give it the kind of this first little push down here. Trade a low of 26.75s there. And if we're able to hold and get back above those 73.30, 75s, then I want to look to hold this position up into 73.64s. Sorry, that happened like right at the open, was really quick there. But did get filled there at 29.50s on the Nasdaq right off the open there. Opening print so far on the day is 73.34 quarters. Looks like S&Ps have traded that level as well, 2800.75, and Russell still flirting right around that 1507.7. So I'm going to keep an eye on this. We did just put in kind of new highs on the day there, looking like we're coming back down here. And if we do start cracking this level of kind of 26.75s in a bigger way there, then I want to get out. And whoop. All right, so got filled on an exit there. Was a little late on that one. That was my fault on the exit there. So took a little bit more slippage on the exit there than I wanted to. But we had the first initial push down. And again, that was the game plan for today, was 73.30, 75s for a long opportunity. And if we were able to get that position, then that's what I wanted to be able to do. Now I did that. So far it hasn't worked out. We took a first stop loss on that trade here so far today. And again, maybe it needs a little bit more room than what I'm willing to give it here. Or maybe the market's just not going to rally from this point. But again, we know that that's going to happen. And we're not always going to have each and every trade be a winner. So from this point, if we remember the morning trade plan here, we've kind of pushed down through this level. Now, if we rally back up into this level and start to sell off again, that's going to pretty much say, okay, we're going to 72.87s. We need to flip the biases here. But if this is just going to be kind of a long range bottoming tail there on the NASDAQ and we start getting back above these 73.30s and holding, then I am not opposed to taking another new long opportunity with a move up into kind of 73.64s there. Yeah, I got stopped out. I was looking to put a stop in under 24s, give it about 5 points there, and I did not get that in place. And it looks like my fills on that ended up being, fills on my exit were 20.75s. So it took about 4 points worth of slippage there, kind of from where I wanted to be with that first initial trade there in the NASDAQ. And again, I'm fine with that. You know, it happened fast at the open. And, you know, you'll see that time and time again where you'll get some slippage at the open. You'll see some moves that happen. And that's why if you journal your trades and you're tracking what's going on, and you'll start to realize, okay, from 9:30 to 10 o'clock each morning, that's when I lose the majority of my money. And most likely that's that kind of whipsaw back and forth action, you know, or, you know, taking 4 points of slippage on the stop that you wanted to actually get out at. So keep that in mind and, you know, take a look at your positions and your trades on that and see if that is actually happening to you. Yeah, so Kid, I answered that this morning. My favorite markets to trade are the S&Ps and the NASDAQ. Prefer those. Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, we took, obviously the first stop here on the day, kind of right there off the open here. It's only 9:34, and I'm not gonna try pressing this here. I see we're coming back up, kind of the 73.30s. The good part about this is, right, if you look at the S&Ps, we're 4 points off that level now in the S&Ps, right? So we're showing strength in the S&Ps. Nasdaq here had that hard push down, and at this point now we've got to look for a pullback to get into the Nasdaq here. So may have gotten stopped out there on a little bit of a shakedown, but again, trying to find an entry here into the Nasdaq. We've got opening prints at 34.25. So if we can start to get pullbacks kind of to there, seeing the strength coming out of the S&Ps, then I will look for that trade. And if that does not happen, then I will not capture this move to the long side. So I will trade the dailies as well. It's got to be a picture perfect setup, pretty much for any trade, but especially when it comes to the binaries. I like to have divergences into levels for those trades, and if I can get those, then those are when I like to take the dailies or even like 2-hour binaries on those. All right, market's pushing here. Dow actually turned green on the day here, up 0.02% right there. And we need to get a pullback here in the Nasdaq in order to get this long entry. In the process of me saying that, okay, the S&Ps have held that 2800.75 and starting to push higher, the Nasdaq should follow through. We kind of busted up here through the open and didn't really get that pullback in order to get a long here in the Nasdaq. So unfortunately, that's kind of one of the things that starts to happen when you moderate and looking at different things and saying things is, I just happen to miss that part of the equation here so far this morning. And if we do get up into 73.64 quarters, which we have not traded just yet this morning since we put in those lows at 3 a.m., then we can take a look at that and start trying to find a new entry if and when and after we trade up through 73.64 quarters. For those of you that traded the S&Ps, though, that pushed through by about a point here so far. Looks like we traded a low of 99, so a point and 3 ticks there. And that's a good looking trade. So you shouldn't have gotten stopped out of the S&Ps there if you did take that trade. And that's up about 10 points right now. So good work out of you guys if you took the S&Ps over the Nasdaq. And if you did somehow get back into the Nasdaq here on this momentum, then 73.64 quarters just traded right there. It did, Lou. It did. And I looked away for just a second to look at the S&Ps, and then, by the time I was talking about it holding and the fact that, I think the Nasdaq is going to run with it, it just kind of took off without me. So it happens. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. I mean, that early stop kind of hurt as well. But the thing that you don't want to do right here, and this is why I'm not too concerned about this. It's Monday morning. Okay, we took a little bit of a stop loss early, but the bias in the direction that we were looking to trade obviously worked out really, really well, and that would have been a 34-point trade. Had we been able to kind of get back into that after realizing the S&Ps were holding, and so call it 35 points. That's a $700 per contract trade. So again, I'm not necessarily too worried about 4 points, and the market's moving nicely so far this week. We got another 4 days to trade. What I don't want to do is go, okay, I'm pissed off at the market now. Nasdaq, you owe me, 4 points plus my stop plus the 34-point trade I missed, and start trying to press something and dig myself into a hole that I don't necessarily want to be into. That's the key focus right there for me at the moment. Correct, Lou. Yeah, just waiting for a confirmation and the next move higher. I mean, if we go from 73.64s up to 74.04s, then that could be potentially a nice trade here. I mean, we're 9 minutes into the day here. We're developing some nice reactions right here around this 73.64 quarters. and it is something I'm going to look at a long opportunity in. I'm just kind of surveying the field as to what the rest of the markets are doing at this moment. Awesome. Glad to hear that, Parker. And this is why I'm being patient right here, right? I mean, we just dropped 8 points in like 2 seconds there on the NASDAQ. This prior low here was 73.59s. And again, that's why you take targets. We're about 10 points off that target now in just a matter of, seconds, minutes after trading it. All right. Everything's about unchanged here on the day. NASDAQ still the weakest, down 0.16% so far. Have to have confidence. Gotta have confidence, you gotta have discipline, you gotta have patience, gotta have a lot of things. And you gotta be willing to adapt and change and admit when you're right or wrong. Yeah, I mean, you typically don't need a 10-point stop when it comes to the NASDAQ. That happens as well. Nice. Up $1,000 from the 2,800 level. Yeah, if you took the S&Ps instead of the NASDAQ, you made out a whole lot better. The S&Ps didn't push through by nearly as much, and most likely wouldn't have stopped you out. I'm going to watch pullbacks here to 73.48, kind of see how that level reacts off of the NASDAQ here so far. So far we traded it to the tick there. Just traded those 73.48s. Again, I'm not doing anything with it here off 73.48, just paying attention to the reactions that we get from that level. Do you plan on sharing levels in the morning before the power hour starts? Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to be doing a little bit of a write-up, kind of thoughts and game plan and analysis for the day prior to doing the morning trade plan and the power hour, and can share those levels as well. Yeah, I can share the charts as well. That's not a problem. I'll share the levels with the chart and then the write-up as well at the same time. It's a rough one sometimes, Makari. I don't blame you on that one. Now again, the trade this morning, right, from 73.30s to 73.64s, like at that point you're out, right? You've picked up 34 points on the day, and we know from a larger time frame swing perspective, we need to get up over 74.04 quarters for this market to really get moving to the long side. So trying to hold past a 34 point trade, 10 minutes into the day, um, for lack of a better term, is kind of stupid there, right? Wait, reestablish a new position once the market confirms the direction you want to get there. Yeah, we've pulled back the entire move so far. We're currently trading 73, 30, 75s. Now, again, this is going to set up potentially a short opportunity here. We're looking at a nice move higher so far into 73.64 quarters. We got a solid reaction off of that level here so far. And now we're pushing back down under 73, 30, 75s. So if we can start kind of rallying back here into kind of 30, 75s to 34 quarters, I may look at a short opportunity. We've got both the Russell and the Dow putting in new lows so far in the day. So we do have a little bit of a divergence kind of setting up right here. S&P's back into that level, Nasdaq's back into that level. So you could make an argument here for a long side trade, and be very valid with it with the divergence. My only thinking here is that we've traded the higher levels. They weren't able to keep price at those higher levels, and they've now sold off here. And we've got some of the weaker markets there, both the Dow and the Russell, kind of showing weakness there, wanting to look like looking like they want to go lower. And that could be a very valid reason to not take a long opportunity here with that divergence in price that's setting up. S&P's just put in new lows there. So I do think we're going to get this move kind of that we talked about this morning lower once we crack under 73, 30, 75. So I'm going to keep an eye on that here. Maybe we'll establish a short trade here and look to ride that down into 72.87s. And we need to see if we're going to get that pullback here or the rally back in order to be able to get that. Russell here, the weakest market so far, down 0.67% on the day. Just a little bit shy of trading that 1500 level there. So I'm going to be focused on short sides here. If we can get this kind of rally back up into, this 30.75 to kind of 34 quarter opening print there. And again, this is going to be, taking against or going against the divergence that's currently setting up, because the Nasdaq has not gotten new lows on the day just yet. All the other markets have so far. And just surveying the field here, making sure what the rest of the markets are doing. And if that does not rally back and allow us an opportunity to get into a short side trade, I'm not going to be happy with the markets this morning. They will have tricked me. We got about 43 points worth of downside profit potential here on this Nasdaq trade. So, all right, Nasdaq's getting new lows here on the day. Again, being patient, waiting for that pullback to get the right entry, and we're just not getting it so far. $1,500 traded on the Russell there. These are some pretty swingy moves happening so far. And again, the reason I'm being patient here is there's not a reason for me to rush into this trade, right? We're getting, again, we talked about it in the pre-market session. We got a 100-point range in the overnight session. That's $2,000 per contract. You can easily hurt yourself with that type of range. So if I'm being patient here and waiting for the right entry, there's a very valid reason for that. I see the profit potential. It's a 43-point trade. Now we might get there without me having, gotten into that trade. But if I break my rules and I get into a trade, even though I think it's going lower, and it does finally get that pullback, and I'm not able to hold through that pullback, I take a loss. whatever, and it's breaking my rules, breaking my plan, then I know long term that's not a viable strategy for me to do. I need to follow my rules um, and wait for these pullbacks. So at times it can be boring like this, where you kind of see the direction, you see the move happening, and you miss out on that trade, like what it like what it's shaping up to be that I've missed out so far on the long and maybe on the short yet. We don't know. Um, but again, I know long term that that works for me, and I don't have a problem missing out on these trades if it doesn't set up, right? If it sets up and I don't take the trade, then again, that's a problem. That's my fault for not pulling the trigger. But when I don't have the setup here, it is not my fault and not my trade, so I shouldn't be taking it. How loud is me typing, by the way, guys? I got a new mic, so just kind of checking to see what the volume's looking like and any adjustments I need to make for you guys. All right, so we're getting the rally back here a little bit. Perfect. Actually, you guys can't even see that. Let me see. How do I make this preview window bigger? So waiting for Nasdaq to trade back up into that kind of 73.30 level there. About 15 points away here so far. But here's the new mic setup there. Yeah, that was a pretty quick drop. I mean, I got 2800.75 level still in place from this morning. And it'll still be valid resistance if we trade back up into that level. One thing to keep in mind here, though, is kind of as we come up into the 73.30 75s level, is will the market start to become choppy or consolidate or sideways action at that point? I don't think that's going to be the case here so far this morning, but given the action that we've seen, I mean, the Russell's reversing the last 5-minute red bar. Like as I speak, the Russell just reversed that entire 5-minute red bar. So I do want to pay attention to kind of what's going on with the rest of the markets. Markets are weak here in terms of this nice sell-off that we've had so far, about 65 points or so there in the Nasdaq. So rallying back off those lows about 25-30 points, not a big deal. But again, I want to see continued reaction and follow through to the downside if this move is going to work. So you could, Lou. I mean, you could definitely wait for the next hourly candle. I mean, it's 9:53 right now, so you got about 37 minutes to wait to get that next hourly candle to kind of shape up. I don't necessarily want to wait for that at this point. It is the safer trade to take there. But at that point, most likely what's going to end up happening is if we wait for that point, we will have traded down into kind of 72.87s already by the time that bar closes. If I had to take a guess at what was going to be the close of that bar, I would say lower than 73.30 75s, and most likely we will have already traded down into kind of 72.87s at that point. Let's see here. And we might not even get the rally back on that. We'll see here. We got a nice topping tail starting to form here on the 5-minute chart. Nice little pullback. To be honest with you, I'm a little bit inclined to go long right here from the contrarian standpoint. but I'm not going to pull the trigger on that. So the reason being is that, all right, if we're going to hold, right, we're not going to, let's, argument's sake, let's say we don't get the trade down into 72.87s, right? And we're going to kind of hold right in through here. And you anticipate that, okay, 73.30, 75s are going to break to the upside next time we trade up there. Well, if you can get in 20 points early with a really small stop, really small risk on that trade, wait for the confirmations, then it's a very powerful type of entry there, right? Again, we're not in that type of landscape where I think it's a good opportunity to go long there, which is why I didn't do it. But those types of trades do have their place and can allow you to get in kind of pre-move and pre-confirmation for the actual trade that you're looking to take. So we don't have the price action that's developing for that type of trade, but again, it is a strategy that you can use in conjunction with the levels. Nice. All right, so we do have divergence setting up right here, and I'm going to now take that long opportunity. All right, so taking long NASDAQ here, 73.09s on the fill there. We got a divergence in place. S&P's, NASDAQ, and Dow pushed down into new lows. Russell did not get new lows. Again, I was paying attention to that 5-minute reversal bar in the Russell there and was finally able to take an opportunity off of that. We didn't quite get down into those 72.87s, but again, was being patient, waiting for that trade, and so far picked up the NASDAQ for a 73.09 long opportunity here. And looking to see if we can get the move kind of up into 73.30, 75s, and confirmations above that, and moves to continue to the upside. And again, the only reason I'm stepping into the long side here now prior to 72.87s is the fact that we do have a divergence in place. And I don't know if it's going to work out just yet. We may get a follow-up, secondary divergence there kind of happening down into 72.87s, which would be the preferred trade here. But again, we do have the trade in place. I am going to follow the rules. I am going to take the trade and manage it accordingly. Again, my brain tells me that we're going to trade 72.87s. So this position right now is more difficult for me to have on because I'm like, okay, I should be patient and wait for 72.87s. But we did get the divergence. I will give it a few points worth of risk and see if it wants to work out here. I don't think it will, but I've been wrong before. I'm giving it this first pullback here, about 4 points there, and then I will be out. That low so far is 0650s, and I got stop losses in place at 05s there, and now we're going to let this trade work itself out. This could be the potential for the new uptrend forming on the small time frame 987 tick chart there. You can see this 0650 could end up being the higher low of this move, and that pushes us up here into kind of 73.30, 75s. Again, I'm just reading what the chart's telling me and reacting off of that. Have a game plan in place. My game plan this morning did not work so far, and I was patient looking for the next setup, which is a divergence that we're currently kind of sitting in. And the reason I chose, pretty much 05s there is, all right, we've got a nice move down, rally up, new lows, rally back, pullback so far here is the 0650. These prior lows are 0475s. So we really shouldn't crack 0475s, and I'm giving this about 4 points there at 05s. If it does crack that, then we most likely should get down here into kind of 72.87s. And at that point, I don't really want to be in this trade, and I want to wait for 72.87s. So it should hold above 05s. And if it doesn't, then I'm out. And again, I've said this before, I do think we get down into 72.87s. But the divergence is in place. It has not triggered yet. This 5-minute bar has not closed. So I am taking an early entry into that, and I don't think it works. But still got to follow the rules. All right, just got filled. at 05s on a stop loss there. Now that actually that actually would make me mad if we filled at 05s and then ripped higher. But again, I do think we still get the move lower. But now that I'm out of it, that might not happen. So it took a 4-point stop loss there in the NASDAQ and literally got filled on the bottom tick there of 05s. Thoughts on S&Ps are going to be the same thing here. We've got a divergence in place. So move back up into 2875s off that divergence. And we will see if I got shaken out of the NASDAQ or not. Yeah, it's not, yeah. They're not my friend this morning so far. They have not benefited me. But again, there's days where that's going to happen, and there's days where, you know, they save you from a freaking never-ending trend either to the upside or the downside. I've been on both sides of that. And I really want to be long here, but I don't want to be long until 72.87 straight, so a little bit of a dilemma. And literally filled right at 05s. Like I said, that was going to bother me. 24.75s on that. Yeah, 87 should trade. No matter where or how you get levels from, whether it's fibs or level to levels, they'll line up. On, I mean, not obviously every single time, but they will line up. Yeah, I mean, I don't personally think we're going to get up into 30s. I think we're going to go straight into 72.87s at this point. And I think this divergence actually fails. It has not triggered yet in the S&Ps here. Russell's weak again, pushing back lower. Potentially getting new lows here in just a few points. About a point now. So again, I don't think that we go up into 30s yet. I don't think this divergence works, but again, the divergence was there. Had to take the early entry and follow the rules for it. All right, new lows across the board there, except for the Russell here. NASDAQ pushing down. 72.87 still a target there for this downside move. We've got divergences in place now. An arrow in the NASDAQ, an arrow in the S&Ps. But again, we're still not quite down to those 72.87s. And the prior divergence did not trigger in the S&Ps there. Yeah, so I've got 72.46s on a downside there. Again, so those levels line up fairly close to one another in two different setups there. So NASDAQ so far has traded 7,300.50s on the low there. Russell new lows, Dow new lows, everything new lows. Only a signal in place so far on the Nasdaq and the Dow. Neither one of those have triggered yet, and neither did the prior divergence. That's why it was an early entry into that trade. And even though I said it might not work, still have to take it, still have to follow the rules. So you can see we're trying to hold down here. You know, we're getting kind of like 73.06. We're coming down, we're kind of tagging this level, getting reactions, coming down, kind of pushing through it a little bit, getting reactions, pushing through it a little bit, getting reactions. And at this point, those reactions still continue to be smaller than the prior reactions, right? We're still maintaining trend on a smaller time frame chart. If that does break, then keep an eye on that, as that could lead to a sign of reversal here in the Nasdaq specifically. Yeah, pretty much a waiting game at this point. I mean, a lot of trading, unfortunately, is kind of a waiting game. And we'll see. We've got 20, I believe this level was 24.75 is the upside. Yeah, 24.75 is the upside. If that level does break and then we start pushing up here through 73.30, 75s, then we can start looking for new longs based on the fact that we're up over 73.30, 75s. At the moment, we do have a divergence in place. It is close to triggering. It is a rather large stop of about 18 points there. So not a trade that I necessarily want to take here, given the risk-reward ratio for that doesn't look to be in our favor. Yeah, exactly. It's definitely a battle between long and shorts down here. And again, I think if we trade down into 72.87s, I think longs will win from that point. All right, we just triggered that divergence there, kind of across the board, Dow, Nasdaq, and immediately getting a nice reaction back off of that. You can see a nice reversal bar shaping up there. So again, I stepped back and I said, okay, if we can get above 24.75s, then we could look for potential longs here. That was the first pullback in this rally that pretty much went straight down 60 points. So keeping an eye there and just being patient on those. That's a new one. SONH. But yeah, no, this is definitely a sit on hands kind of time right here, and just be patient and wait for this setup to occur. So we've had, in essence, in my mind, we've had three good setups here on the day, right? We had the first initial 73.30, 75 long attempt here that ended up stopping out, right? We had the secondary long off of 73.30, 75s here, given the fact that the S&Ps were so strong and holding their level. Just in the process of me mentioning that, I ended up missing this trade and tried to get a pullback here to the open, which we never got. So had you been paying attention to this, you should have been or could have been long here anywhere between 30, 75s and kind of 34s there with the strength off the S&Ps. And then the only other opportunity I saw was the long here that stopped out at 05s there for me. which was this divergence here. Again, it did not trigger, so it was an early entry, so smaller size trade. But again, those are so far the only 3 valid trades in the NASDAQ for me so far today. And 2 of those trades that I have taken, 2 of the 3, did not work. One of them worked out very nicely for about 34 points there. So if you guys were able to capture that one, you're doing a whole lot better than me so far this morning. And I do think we still get this move down, so that's why I'm being patient. Looking long into 99s. I don't think we're going to get that move just yet. I think we got to get these new lows first. And again, the argument off of the new lows at 72.87s for a long there, the argument for a short can definitely be made for that, right? With targets down into kind of 72.46s there. So you could argue that 72.87s is not going to be a very good long opportunity, given the fact that we kind of got down close to that level at 3 a.m. Got about 3 points away from it there, and rallied, call it 75 points or so from that point, and then now sold off again. So market in essence is a whole lot weaker from that point. But again, it'll be the first time that we've actually traded to that level there. So again, the way in which we got to that level is definitely not the cleanest. Had we seen straight down into 72.87s here first thing this morning, prior to this rally, then I think we go straight from 72.87s back to 73.64s. So again, now we're coming down into 72.87s. I think targets on this trade are going to go up into 73.30, 75s, and then from that point, it's up to the markets whether or not it is going to go back up into 73.64 quarters, or then back down into 72.46s. So we'll see there which one of those 2 setups want to actually take in play or come into play, and we could trade down into 72.87s and kind of base out, have one little green bar rally to that level again, and then just sell off right back down into 72.46s. And if that happens, then I'm fine with that. Again, it's just a matter of if then I'll do this type of statements when it comes to the markets. Sorry, excuse me. Russell here getting new lows so far. Nothing else getting new lows just yet. And maybe we see the Russell kind of come into that 1494 level at the same time that NASDAQ's coming into 72.87s. And let's take a look here. If we can get... I don't think we get quite all the way down there. But if we do really crack, start going lower, we got kind of 27.83, 75 there to the downside in the S&Ps. NASDAQ new lows there, cracking under 7,300s, working our way to 72.87s. Russell new lows, S&P's new lows. Dow about to get those new lows. $72.94.50 so far on the low. Remember, Globex lows were 72.90s on the dot there for the NASDAQ. 27.90 quarters. New lows in there, and not quite new lows yet in the Dow. 25,377. And that's exactly, Ray, why I was not going to get short until we got back up into 73.30, 75s. I was not going to find a way to get myself stopped out of a short side trade. I'd just rather miss the trade than not take what is considered to be my entry there. All right. We got a signal setting up in place here in the Dow. So far, the Dow's had one trigger today. Nasdaq's had one trigger. And again, that was the same bar, same time. And that was that trigger that happened kind of right in here. And again, was looking for the move over 24.75s to actually give some more confirmation of that trade, which we just have not gotten yet. Yeah, I mean 72.60s. So kind of right in the middle of the 72.87s, the 72.46 level. I have not looked at what anything is doing so far this morning. We got a reversal bar taking place here in the Dow, reversal bar trying to form in the S&Ps as well. Take a look here. Apple. They sell off so far in Apple, Amazon, Google. And I think pullbacks on Apple here with targets up to 200 isn't bad. I don't necessarily like it right here, but I don't really hate it either from a swing perspective. I do not have an order sitting down there at 72.87s currently at the moment, no. I'm waiting for price to kind of get down in there. I want to see how it trades, how it reacts from that point, and the price action that occurs off that level. You can most certainly place limits at levels, but again, you know, kind of like this morning here, 73.30, 75s. I got a little bit of a better fill there at 29.50s, you know, by kind of watching price as it came down into that level. Now again, that trade obviously did not work out, but I like to see if I can get a little bit of a better entry than the level. You know, sometimes it pushes through the level by a tick, and it's like, all right, you know, you really can't get that much better of an entry. But given the type of movement that we're seeing so far this morning, you know, I'm confident in that I can get at least right around my level with a little bit higher degree of certainty based on the price action that trades down there. And again, that is going to be if we do trade down in there. Divergence in place in the Dow is triggering here. 5-minute reversal bar across the board so far in S&Ps, Russell, and the Dow. Not quite in the Nasdaq just yet, but it's getting close. So pretty much everything else got new lows from the pre-market session, except for the Nasdaq and the Dow. Dow's pre-market lows were down at 377, Nasdaq's were 72.90. S&P's cracked to new lows, Russell cracked to new lows there. So if you're paying attention to the overnight session as well, then you can make an argument there for a divergence in price. But again, I don't necessarily look at the pre-market session combined with the intraday session outside of just knowing what those lows and highs were. I'm not going to make that a valid trade setup for me as I just haven't found consistency in doing so in the past. Now I say that, and then it'll prove me wrong here today. But it's definitely a valid argument you could make there. So a reversal bar is just, if we've got a 5-minute red bar, to the downside, right? And then the very next bar completely reverses that bar, to the upside. That would be a reversal bar. Or an engulfing bar, engulfing candle, as it has been called as well. I am hungry. 10:20 here. Nasdaq kind of hanging out here in this base. I still think we get the move. Darn it. My parents are coming up today to visit with the grandbaby. My dad makes this really good homemade bread that's keto and a pecan pie. But I just got the message that he didn't have enough time, apparently, somehow, to make that. And I was really looking forward to that today. It's unfortunate. 72.93.50s. For those of you that have tried low carb bread, most of it's not very good. So you could understand my disappointment. 72.96.50s. Yeah, 10:30 close coming up here. I think we're gonna, like I said, I mean, even if it, like we were talking about earlier, if you're waiting for the 10:30 close there, 72.87s are confirmations there. I think we were going to trade to this point as opposed to being above 73.30, 75. So at least I got one check mark for being right on the day for that. Have not been able to make anything of it yet. And currently down here, trading one lots again this morning. It's Monday morning here, so currently down $255 on the day. About 4 points of that was slippage there. So 175 or so, give or take, is what I should be down, but I can't call up and be like, hey, I should only be down this much. They're not going to give me that money back. Are you short, Brad? I'm looking for you're looking for like 72.41s, right? Just kind of hanging out at the $7,300 number. Gold here a couple points higher. Never got that pullback to 13, 16, 10 there. Crude oil here again, moving with the markets, got the move down into 58.31s. Have not looked at that so far this morning, but I know someone was short that, so good move out of you if you were short the crude oil markets there. It's gotten a nice move down with the rest of the markets here. And we're still just waiting. $72.87s has not come into play just yet. I actually did not mark up any resistance in crude here, or sorry, in gold. I think in gold we look up towards like 13.2630s there. That would be this gap up, which would essentially be the rally back to a new high, or a lower high in this series of downtrends as a pivot. So 13.2630s there in gold. And again, I'm kind of the belief that gold fails on these longs, but I'm not going to short gold just because I think that. Nasdaq starting to rally a bit here. Russell getting a nice bid, so is the Dow off these lows. Starting to look like we don't want to get that move to 72.87s. That is what it's starting to look like here. Do you have longs on from down here, or you're waiting for 99s to get short? Ah, okay, nice. I mean, if we do break back to the upside here, then we should get moved back up into 2800.75s. That's kind of my feeling with the 72.87s. If we don't hold 72.87s, then that's going to be kind of bad news bears there for an immediate like 40-point drop down into 72.46s, and then from there we got a lot more room to go. What I'm paying attention to here though is the Russell. I mean, the Russell's getting a nice move off these lows so far. If I can type in the symbol correctly. And if this turns into a nice reversal on the daily chart here for the Russell, we've got moved back up into like kind of 1600, so 100 points in the Russell. That'd be a pretty nice move. Let me actually see. Kind of 1500. Can sell those for, call it 17 points. Huh, it's not terrible. 4 days to go. You could sell the 1500 strike for 17 bucks in the Russell there, for right at like $17. I may actually go ahead and do that. Let me see. See if that will get filled. Try 1650. There we go. So I just sold a 1500 put there in the Russell. Give some long exposure to the Russell there for over the next 4 days. Has a nice little stop loss in 1650, so 80, 83.50s. It's about 10 points lower than that 94 level there in the Russell. And compare that up. Let's see here. Oh, they're expensive. It gives me some long side exposure. We, again, haven't quite gotten down to that level in order to take a futures position yet, but putting that on, selling it for 1650 does provide some opportunity to benefit from a market rally here, and allows me to have some flexibility with that price and cap the risk there, because if we do start selling off lower than my break-even price, I can just sell futures against that position. And at this point, it's not looking like I'm going to get my entry down at 72.87s, unfortunately here. So given the strength coming off the Russell there and that pattern that it showed on the daily chart, with room from a swing perspective, if this reverses up into 1600s, I like the risk-reward ratio on that trade, kind of over the next 4 days in the Russell. Again, it only allows me to make, $16.50 out of the Russell. So if you do that math times 50 bucks a contract, so $825 on that trade I can potentially make as long as price stays above 1500 in the Russell, which I do like. So I did get that position put on, and there's your 99s. So I'm not looking at a short now off of 73.30s. I mean, we got so close to getting the 72.87s here that a short back from 73.30, 75s all the way back down into 72.87s is most likely not likely. Most likely not. Yeah. Most likely it's not going to happen. At this point, I mean, we're showing really, really good signs of strength here. And I'm not going to take the first attempt at a short off of 73.30, 75s. I think from a daily chart perspective, we've got a nice swing to the upside, which is why I did want to focus on longs here off of 30.75s and off 72.87s. So for me, I'm going to still focus to the long side here, allow this to get kind of the first test up here and get reacted off of, see where that pulls back to, and then look to establish potentially some swings here once we get above 30.75s, because we have not gotten that 72.87s yet. And Russell right back up here in a 15.077s. S&P's at 2800.75s there. Let's take a look at the S&P's here. Yeah, so up over 21.75. This thing's got room, nice room to go. And so far, nice little reaction there off of 2875s and off of 0770s there in the Russell here. NASDAQ couldn't quite get that level of 3075s here. And just paying attention to kind of this 15-minute time frame here to see how this is setting up. swing analysis here. Yeah, so we've got room 75, 43 quarters there. First reaction coming in off of 73.30 75s. They did not trade, but the S&Ps did trade 2800.75s and Russell traded 1507.7s there. I do want to hang out for the next kind of 30 minutes here, see if we can get some type of swing trade entry into this trade. I do think we've got room up into 75.43s kind of long term there, especially if we can get over 74.04 quarters there in the Nasdaq. So I do want to see if I can get a position on here. I'm just going to go ahead and leave the screen share and the mic on for a bit. But give me just a couple minutes and I will be right back. All right. So I do want to establish some type of swing here, and I'm torn between a position here in the S&Ps or the Nasdaq, just given the fact that the S&Ps are showing some good strength here over the Nasdaq, and I'm also torn in the fact that we haven't traded down into those 72.87s just yet. I got that small swing position on there in the Russell, which is just selling those puts, trying to collect a little bit of a premium during this week. As long as we can kind of stay above, basically 1494s there in the Russell futures. And I'm about to, let's see here, what's this low? 12s, fire lows here, 1375s. Yeah, I mean, it is, Lou, but again, we've got that divergence in place that's fighting against it. And I mean, not to say that we can't go straight back down into 72.87s at this point and then reverse higher. But the fact that we got so close to that level leads me to believe, like, okay, that's like good enough, right, when it comes to that trade. All right, taking a long here in Nasdaq. So what I'm playing right now is we have the divergence in place. And again, I don't know if this trade is going to work out again as well. I'm taking a lot of little trades here to try and capture a larger move, and not being patient for the bigger move down into 72.87s. So I could be breaking the rules here and not following what I should be doing. But the trade idea here is the fact that we have the nice move down. We got really close to targets, rallied up, and this trade is not going to work. 0850s. I'm trying to buy the first pullback after the divergence, and it is not giving me what I want just yet. 1 second, I'll explain my thinking on this trade and the reason why I'm willing to take it. Alright, that low in place at 08 quarter. We back up over 14s here on this trade. Yeah, 15s would be preferred, but back over 14s, this is a good setup. Preferred over 15s. But you can take a small long here. Again, up over 14s, preferred up over 15s there. And I'll explain the reasoning here in just a minute as to why I'm looking to take this trade. And actually why I'm already in the trade. So far highs of that move are 73.18 in the Nasdaq. The conservative entry and the proper entry here is waiting for the move up over 73.30.75s here. But this is still setting up a valid 5-minute pullback buy setup here, and I'm just trying to be a little bit early into that trade. And then back down through these lows, I am going to bail on this trade and either be patient for 72.87s or patient for back up over 30.75s. Because these little entries that are not quite at levels and not quite lining up with what I want to see on the day, and these little stop outs are actually starting to hurt, and I don't want to do that. Prior highs on that move were 18. Currently highs are 1750. I have not gotten stopped out of that trade just yet. I'm giving it under those lows there of 08 quarters. And I'll walk through and explain the reasoning behind this. And I know Lou is a little confused on the level to level and what he's missing here. And I'm going to show you guys exactly what I'm thinking on it. I'll give you the reasons. I'm just trying to focus here for just a moment. Highs of 20 quarter. This move right here should push us up through these 73, 30, 75s and then provide additional entries from that point. We will see. S&P is just traded at 2800.75 level there to the tick again. We want to see that push through and finally break. Prior highs on that move for the S&Ps were 2801 quarter, so 2 tick push through that level. So we really want to see that push through, start trading above, as well as the Nasdaq there, 7330 75s. We want to see us get above that level. Target for this trade. Intraday target for this trade is going to come in at 73.64 quarters again, and then 74.04 quarters, and then all the way up into 75.43 quarters, I believe, is that level for the swing basis. And I'll walk through this trade, and we're not going to get it. We're going to trigger the buy setup and fail, I think. That's not what I want. Sometimes when I click my toss thing, it like moves it like around on the screen for no reason. I don't quite know why. Prior high there is 2450s, and this trade is not going to stop. Let's see. Prior highs 2450s. Lows in place there at 12.75s. So this trade is a little bit more of kind of a trend analysis, larger time frame type of trade. It is combining level to level and just making a few adjustments in terms of the entries that I'm looking to take. So it's a little bit more kind of an advanced thing. And again, like I said, once I'm kind of through this trade and we can kind of push up here through 73.30, 75s, then I'll talk through and give you the breakdown and the analysis and the reasons why I took this trade. So far, P&L on the day for the Russell, that position we sold there, that's up $50 per contract so far, and actually just flip the corner to a green day here with this trade in the Nasdaq. So that with the Russell position just takes us over to a green day here so far, and looking to kind of tack on some nice moves with some nice gains with the rest of this move here. All right, S&P is pushing up through those 2875s, Nasdaq pushing up through 7330, 75s there. Just traded the opening print again. Russell trying to push through 1507.70s, and I think we're gonna get a nice move out of this trade. This move down today could potentially end up setting some kind of swing basis lows here for the week on us, and that's why I went ahead and put that Russell position on, and why I was so focused on getting a Nasdaq swing position on in here with this move. Now we had a little bit of a level here coming in at 75.48. I'm going to pay attention to here, excuse me, in the Nasdaq, but again, looking to target up into 73.64 quarters with this trade. And entry price was 1650s on the average for that trade, and so far currently up on that trade right here at about 25 points. Oh, nice, Parker. 73.16 and a 30 for $300 trade. Locked in some gains on the day. Beautiful. Yeah, I mean, a little bit of a rough morning so far. I'm not gonna lie. I was getting a little a little perturbed. But so far now, I mean, that trade's working out nicely. P&L open on that trade is $560 per contract. And then again, we've got the Russell futures position as well. That's up 140 bucks so far as well. So we got a really nice day, or I shouldn't say really nice day, but a nice day starting to shape up here. That was not looking to be such a good day in the beginning, I will admit. But it is shaping up. So far 47.75s traded there on the highs there. And I mean, like I said, we got a small level there at 48s. I'm not really anticipating it to be too much resistance there, and I think we do kind of push through, get up into 73.64 quarters, and then from there up into kind of 74.04 quarters on the day. Now, one thing that will give me a reason to start looking at kind of scaling out there at 73.64 quarters, or prior to getting that 74.04 quarter level, is if we do get a new high kind of across the board, right, up over today's highs in the Nasdaq, which are 73.71s, and kind of the rest of the markets are not doing that, they're kind of falling behind, something like that, then I'll look at going, okay, we've got a divergence up here, maybe we're not getting 74.04 quarters on the day, and that'll give me a reason to go, okay, time to cut this position loose, and look to reestablish on a new entry, a new setup into the markets. And that's not what I thought it was. Nice, Lou. Yeah, so I've seen Perry's 1 minute fib sequence for sure. And again, like I said, I'll walk through this. We just traded 73.48 there to the tick on that level. You can see that level on the chart prior to us getting there. Again, I don't think it's going to be massive resistance here that, you know, makes us sell off all the way back down to 72.87s. Don't think that's going to be the case, and I want to hold through the pullback on that. We could trade 34 quarters here. On the pullback, that would not be out of the norm here, before going up into 64 quarters and potentially new highs on the day. So if you are holding this position, then obviously keep that in mind, that is a real possibility here. But yeah, so uh, that's part of the advanced, like a little bit more of an advanced strategy, like this trade here, Parker, when it comes to buying pullbacks with using level to level and using trend. So this trade was primarily a trend based trade, using the 5-minute chart and then drilling down into a 987 tick chart to find the entry. And I'll kind of talk through that here in just a bit. I want to make sure I manage this position effectively, and kind of get it up to targets or cut it loose if I need to, or whatever the case is here. So one of the many kind of challenges of talking through and moderating what it is that you're doing, and prior to, so interestingly enough, prior to doing this, running MLT and trading in front of people and things like this, I was in another room, with Rob Shapiro, which you guys have access to as well, who trades stocks. And one of the things I used to do before, before running a room and before moderating a room, which I got the idea from helping Rob out a few times, was just actually recording my screen and me talking to myself through the trades that I was taking, and just speaking out loud on what it was that I was seeing, and then I have that footage that I could go back and take a look at and be like, you missed this, blah blah blah. So as much as doing, now I know that's obviously not possible for like everybody. Nobody, or not everybody can not necessarily talk to themselves, but talk when they're trading at, in school or whatever the case is. But being able to jot those notes down, or have a Skype conversation or a text message with yourself talking about, this is what I'm looking at here, this is the reasons why, and then at the end of the day kind of go back and review that, and make it kind of your own personal little journal is, I think personally, a big help. At times you'll miss things when running a room or trying to record that type of trade stuff, but in the long run, it more than pays for itself. Yeah, exactly. I agree with that for sure, Parker. Took along at 27.96, got out with $700 at 28.07s. There you go. Good work out of you. Didn't you lock in like $1,000 on the short this morning, or the other long? Someone had $1,000 profit. Yeah, up $1,000. Yeah, so dinner's on you. Up $1,700 on the day. Two bad trades. So the thing that I just said you should do with recording your trades or jotting down your notes is that's applicable then. Hey, I'm down for some steak. I'm gonna make my parents take me to a steak lunch. I can tell you that. My dad somehow doesn't have time to make me a pecan pie. He's buying me some steak for lunch. All right, I'm watching this trade here off of kind of 73.48, and I'm honestly thinking that I should cut this trade to be completely transparent with that. And I think that's what I am going to do here. at this low. It should have already pushed through. And I'm out. All right, so I gave back a little bit there, like 6 points. I'll tell you what my fill was. And you know what? I could hold this and get the pullback down here in the 34 quarters, but we kind of pushed up through these 73.48s there a bit and really started to come off of them, which I did not think was going to be the case. You know, we had this nice move this morning where we just went straight up into 73.64s, didn't give, you know, didn't care about 73.48s at all. And then now the fact that we've come up here, we've tested it, pulled back, tried to get through it, and then now started to pull back again. I was just not going to sit through that pullback and then have to fight 73.48s on the way up again. I would rather take that trail out there and then reestablish at a lower price if need be, as opposed to sitting through, you know, another 10 or 12 or 14 points worth of pullback. So filled order on that trade, got out at 41.50. So was into that trade at 73.1650, out at 73.4150. What is that? 25 points on the nose there. So about a $500 trade in the Nasdaq futures there. And so far the Russell position here sold the 1500 put this morning for a price of $16.50. That position is currently up $165 there as well. So overall in the day, up just a little bit over $400 there. It's fluctuating back and forth, like 405, 410, and probably could have squeaked out, you know, another probably 20 points or so here out of the Nasdaq. So maybe another $400 there. So it would have put me up close to, you know, $800-900 on the day with the Russell position as well. But I am fine with, you know, taking $400 a day on a Monday here, trading just one lots here, really small size, kind of getting back into the rhythm here with the markets, and you know, a nice little swing position on it with the Russell. And to be completely transparent, I haven't had a lot of time lately to do as many day trades as I would like, just with some travel. It was in Nashville, was in San Diego, was in Orlando. So just been, you know, a lot of different places here recently, but now finally, you know, back at the desk and kind of easing back into things with some day trades, and that size is going to obviously step up as you know, we start to get better and more setups here. Then it kind of back at the house and in the groove of things. So that's what I was looking for, kind of there on the Nasdaq. So the big question was, Lou's asking, how do you buy pullbacks? What's your thought process? And walking through the idea of why I went long there. And I can most certainly do that. Trailed my short too tight. I mean, if you're short right now off 73.48s, then, you know, you're kind of looking at these opening prints to 73.30, 75s as kind of a target on that. At least that's where I would be looking. So, all right, let's break down, take a look at this trade here, and you know, why it is that I took the Nasdaq long from that point. So I guess let me do this first. Let me pose the question as to why do you think I took the trade? Not necessarily from a level-to-level perspective, but as to what led me to see and identify that trade as a valid setup to take. Because there is some of this in the pro course in terms of the reasons why. Not as in depth as I'm going to make it. Kind of some of the advanced strategies there, but there is some of this same analysis talked about. Okay, so yes and no. So two parts. All right, so the initial analysis on the day, right, was to the long side, right? We're going to get a move down into 73.30, 75s. We're going to rally up into 73.64s. We're going to make our 34 points right off the open, be up 700 bucks on the day, and then, call it quits by 9:40, right? That trade ended up happening without me. Um, was not able to get into it, right? So unfortunately, that was the case. Waited patiently, looking for 72.87s to trade. They didn't trade. We got front run, like you said, right? So important there. 34 quarters just traded, by the way, and nice reaction so far off of that. The Russell traded 1507.70s as well, and getting a nice move off of that. So if you took the trail on the long and then got back in at 34 quarters, looking like you'll have some pretty decent stops that you can trail in that trade and run that all the way back up to 64 quarters. So I do think probably going to miss most of that move, but hopefully some of you guys got back in or held through that. So that was the initial thinking, right? I was okay, we're going to get the move down to 72.87s. Once we get the move down into 72.87s, then we can look at nice long opportunities that'll push us back through 30.75s. That'll then push us all the way back up to 64 quarters. Now, two things happened here that didn't quite allow us to get to 72.87s. And for me to show those, I think I need to... Yeah, so I rearranged my desk. I got a new main center monitor here. And so let me see if I can load, because this is probably going to be, that's probably going to be really small for you guys to see. So let me see if I can pull up the foregrid here. All right, so can you guys see the foregrid here? Let me full screen that, baby. There we go. All right, so, and again, we've got this kind of 72.87 level there. Perfect. So we get the nice move down, front run of 72.87s, right? This low here is 93.50s, right? But notice on that low there from 10.10, what ends up happening here in the Dow, right? In the Dow, we get a divergence, right? Second signal here on the day that actually ends up triggering the long, right? This ends up triggering the long here in the Dow up over 25,436, right? You can see this next bar has a high of 25,448. So we did trigger that. So we've got two things. We're really, really close to a level, but we just triggered a divergence in the Dow. And again, the Dow and the Nasdaq, and again, I told you, I said this in earlier, is that the market was going to make me a liar on this paying attention to this today. I don't typically pay attention to the lows and highs of the market, from the sense that if it establishes some type of divergence where one market's breaking lows of the Globex and the other market's not, type of thing, that I give it any kind of credibility. Right now we've actually got Russell putting in new highs on the day as well. You guys can see that there. Nasdaq pushing back up through those 73.48s. But what I saw there was, okay, we triggered the divergence, and in the back of my mind I knew, okay, Nasdaq didn't get new lows on the day. Dow did not get new lows on the day from the Globex session. And I'm like, okay, we're really, really close to this level, but we've got a divergence triggering in the Dow. Maybe we don't actually get the move back down into those lows of 72.87s. So now I need to go, okay, if we're going to break trend here and reverse to the upside, what needs to end up happening? Well, from a simple 5-minute chart perspective, we've been in a steady downtrend all morning, right? Here's 2 bars to the downside, 1 green bar, continues pushing lower, rallies up, right? This, and I'm looking specifically at the Dow here. This topping tail here of this high, 25,458, doesn't take out this prior topping tail. Like, okay, so we've got some lower trends in here. Same thing with the Russell, right? 2 bars down, green bar rally up. 2 bars down, green bar rally up. Right, so we're just in a weak 5-minute downtrend, right? Same thing in the Dow, or sorry, same thing in the S&Ps, and then same thing in the Nasdaq here, right? And this is the level I was talking about, 2475s, right? I mentioned that level, and I didn't give you guys the specifics as to why, but this is the reason why. This was the prior high, 2475s, and if we look at, I'm going to pull this away for just a second. If we look at 2475s coming in from right there, sorry, that's on the S&Ps. I'm looking at the Nasdaq chart on the other screen. I type in the symbol, fingers are cold. That's coming in right here, 2475s, right? Everybody see that? I'm just gonna put a like little circle on it or something. Boom. All right, so that's what I'm looking for there to end the downtrend here on a 5-minute chart, and then again also here on the 987 tick chart, right? I was talking about this, like, okay, we've got the nice move down, we've got a rally up, lower highs, lower lows, lower highs, lower lows. Oh, we actually look like we want to change trend right here, right? Doesn't end up happening, doesn't work, right? We still haven't taken out this prior high of 2475s, and then we sell off again. And when we finally sell off that last time, get down here really close to the 87s there, we trigger the divergence on the very next bar in the Dow that then leads to the rally in the Nasdaq. It doesn't quite get to the resistance level here, 73.3075s, but at the same time that that's happening, the S&Ps actually did trade their resistance levels of 2800.75s. So now in my mind, I'm like, okay, on a 5-minute chart, right, which is what we were just analyzing here, we've broken the downtrend from this morning, rallied through it with the divergence at lows, really close to levels. I need to buy the first pullback in this move, right, that could potentially take us to the new uptrend, potentially take us and rally us through for the new uptrend. Sorry. So I'm like, okay, where are we going to break through? Where are we going to pull back to? Where do I need to put stops at? And that level kind of comes in right here at 73.09s. You can see consistent closes on the 5-minute chart right around, consistent opens and closes right around this kind of 73.09s. You guys can all see that, right? Let me know if that's making sense. Might make a little more sense on this chart here. All right, is that making sense? All right, so downtrend, highs, right? In order for the markets to go in a new direction, we need to break the current trend, which that current trend this morning was to the downside. So if we're going to rally, we got to break that downtrend in some form or fashion. And if we can break that downtrend, then we can start buying pullbacks. Because we were so close to that level and because we have the divergence in place on the Dow, we can buy those pullbacks once the trend breaks, and then that'll allow us to get into the trade just a little bit early for the next move higher, right? And that's exactly what ended up happening. We got the down move, we've got this this high in place of 24.75s. We need to break. We need to trade above it. We get the trade above it, and then it's like, okay, where are we going to pull back to? What is going to be the stopping point for this potential pullback, and where do I want to kind of step into it at? And that level came in right here at 73.09s. And you can see that traded just a few ticks through 73.08 quarters, right? So when I see this trade set up, we've broken the 5-minute downtrend. It's time to start looking for longs. And where do we pull back to? We pull back right to 73.09s. And this is right in through here where I was like, all right, this is either going to work or it's not going to work. If you go back and watch the video when we were kind of trading down through there, it's like, all right, it's going to work, it's going to work, maybe not. We're kind of hanging out right here on this level. If it's going to work, it's going to work from right here. And this Russell is beasting, by the way. NASDAQ getting through those 73.48s now, and we're going to be headed back up to 73.64s here pretty quickly. But anyways, this is where I saw that pullback, and I'm like, okay, now I need to find a reason or an entry and how to get into this trade. And all I did was I took the 5-minute chart. So I'm looking at the top left chart right now, and I'm like, okay, as this bar was forming, I started bracketing that bar, right? And remember, that's where the 14s came from, and then 15s, and then 16s, and then I even said 18s, right? So as this bar was starting to form, you can see these were those highs we were setting here, right? There's the 1450s. We rallied up. Here's 18s. We started pulling back. So now I'm like, okay, if we can get back above 18s, we're good to go. We finally got above 18s. Boom, we pushed up here into 2450s. Started pulling back from there, and then I'm like, okay, once back up over 2450s, I'm drilling down into the smaller time frame here to keep an eye on this trend and make sure we're going in the right direction, which we were off these 73.09s. Boom, 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 right? So if we analyze just this portion, we've got the break of the trend right here. This green rally up, took out this prior high. We pull back, boom. This is the 5-minute buy setup right off of 73.09s. Small rally up, small pullback. So this is low, this is a new high, this is a higher low, this is a higher high, this is a higher low, and then boom, we take off right up into targets. Now, we haven't quite gotten to the 73.64 quarters levels yet, but I do think that's coming. So those were kind of all of the thought processes and things that were going through when that trade was setting up. And unfortunately, when like times like that where it's like, you know, there's a couple different things coming together that you're paying attention to, I don't have enough time to actually be able to say and walk through each one of those little steps that I was paying attention to at the time, and be able to effectively manage the trade. But that's why I wanted to come back and do a review, make sure I answered any of you guys' questions on that specific trade setup and what it was that I was looking for there on that trade and kind of what led to it. So overall, I mean, really nice trade. So far on the day, up about 595 bucks here, so can't complain about that at all. I mean, the Russell position is screaming. That trade is up wrong symbol. 355 bucks on the day, and I'll bring that over so you guys can see. So there you guys go. Russell position here, I sold the 1500 put there. I sold that for $16.50. It's currently trading for $9.30. So I've been able to capture half of that premium in just the first day here. I mean, Russell's up about 15 points, give or take, from where I got into that trade at. So that trade's up about 345 bucks there. And then when it comes to the NASDAQ here, that trade is up 245 bucks and completely closed out of that one. So overall in the day, not a bad little day so far, about 600 bucks here. And I'll take that for a Monday that started off pretty rough and was actually down about 400 bucks at one point. I think I was down 410 or something that I saw. And, you know, I was saying, you know, some of these little small trades are actually starting to hurt just a little bit, and I need to be patient and wait and establish just the right trade. and was finally able to execute on that, and hopefully you guys were able to follow along. Whether you took the Russell trade with some Nadex, or you sold the futures puts as well, or actually took the futures contract in the Russell, that one is screaming away, and up nicely again off those 1507.70s. It's about 13 points there. And kind of across the board, everything's looking really nicely, and I think we'll continue to push at least here through lunch, until we get up into 73.64s. Yeah, there is a lot of combinations to it that you can do, Lou. And I know we've talked back and forth through email and stuff like that, and these are a lot of like the little nuances and stuff that I'm trying to be able to put together, and deliver to you guys in a way that's one, understandable, and two, applicable, that you guys can take and see these for yourself during the day, and kind of just knowing how to process like all of the different pieces of the puzzle and the information that you see. I mean, there's definitely such thing as like a analysis paralysis type of thing, where you put way too many different indicators and charts and whatever else, or indicators and stuff like that on your charts. But just trying to drill it down to kind of the core basics that I use. And again, the multi-time frame analysis is absolutely crucial, and that's why I like the Apple. I think Apple's got a nice little pattern going here from a daily perspective. But anyways, to answer your question, Ozzy, how long do I plan on doing the power hour each day? I like to keep them between an hour to an hour and a half. So typically you say 9:30 to 10:30, maybe 11. If there's trades like this and stuff like that where the markets are kind of moving, and we can get a little bit more action and trade setups in, then I'll stay on a little bit longer as long as time permits. I am gonna have to wrap up here in the next like few minutes, just because I do have my parents coming up for lunch. But on days that I don't have something like that, and if we're getting action and stuff like that, I'll keep the screen share open. But yeah, gonna try and keep cutting it off at like 11, and then I'll come back and do a trade review later on in the day, and kind of talk through some of the things that we talked about here this morning. And I can't use my drawing tools, which I should figure out. Let me see something. I'm going to see if I can figure that out. I'm going to see if I can figure out how to use my drawing tools while I'm screen sharing here through YouTube for you guys. And that way I can actually draw on the screen during the session if I'm trying to show or make a point on something. And if I can't do that, what I'm going to do is, either way, I'm going to make trade review videos at the end of the day, kind of documenting and showing with actual drawing tools what it was that I took there. I got to study these some more and upgrade my level to level knowledge. Knowledge is a good thing. Ty Lopez made that word famous somehow. Nice. You're in you're in phase 2, right, Lou? Very nice. Very nice. So $2,600 to go. I mean, cranking out $300, $400, $500 a day. I mean, that's how you do it. I mean, that's a good and average, right? It's not necessarily that you're going to make $300 every single day. Like, you might make $200 one day. You might make $800 the next day. You might lose $200 the next day, whatever the case is, right? So, going for those small consistent winners, and then as you go, continuing to increase your size and be more comfortable with that is what leads to long-term success in this business. Patience and discipline are hard. I mean, I wish there was uh, I wish there was more to that, like that you could actually educate somehow as to um, how to become more patient or more disciplined. Um, I know. So Rob, Major League Forex Rob, there is really good at the psychology, um, and he's supposed to be working on some stuff for you guys when it comes to that. And I'm excited to read that stuff too. I mean, the psychology of just everything in general is really interesting to me. So we have some pretty in-depth conversations when it comes to just psychology overall and just how people perceive different different things that are said, different logos, different etc. People's why people say the things they say, and etc. So the psychology part is really interesting, and I think what's helped me a lot is looking into psychology that comes into play with other aspects of your life. Um, and actually, you know what? I have a YouTube video I'll drop for you guys. Let me see. Um, on psychology. I just watched this the other day. Let's see here. There we go. So this video is like 14 minutes long, but I think it's a good video personally. Um, so it's just talking about like practical psychology, and by Stephen Covey. I don't know. He has a book, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, and this YouTube actually did a video on practical psychology and used his methods. Um, and I think it's a really good kind of thought-provoking YouTube video there. Yeah, exactly. Not always home runs. I mean, this freaking Russell right now is a home run. Like, I'm honestly wishing I had actual futures on in the Russell because it has given absolutely no reason to get out of that trade. And again, like I said, Russell has room up to 1600, so that could potentially be a 100-point swing there in the Russell. It's up 25 points already out of the 1500, so it was a really nice looking trade there in the Russell. But yeah, absolutely. I'm glad to help you guys, Parker, Lou, and Kaylin, and everybody. There is a way for divergence to set up overnight, like I was talking about this morning. We kind of had that at 3 o'clock this morning across the board when the Russell didn't get new lows. But again, it's not something that I'm necessarily going to trade because at 3 o'clock in the morning, typically I am sleeping unless the baby wakes up, which this morning didn't happen until 5, just for a bit, and then was back to sleep until 8. So typically not going to be awake at those times, but it is still a valid. The chart pattern of the divergence and it happening still is valid in the overnight session as well. So anyways, I'm gonna go ahead and wrap it up here though. 11:30, been talking for like 2.5 hours straight, but keep an eye out. Market's going higher. Nasdaq just traded those 73.64 quarters. S&P's got targets up above at 28, 21.75s. And the Russell here just continuing to rip higher. I didn't even put in upside profit targets in that Russell at all just yet. And so far I left about 25 points on the table here in the NASDAQ. And that's something that I got out at 41.50s. We're currently 67s. Again, I mentioned you could hold through the pullback and it can still rally, but I'm not concerned about missing the rest of this move or that part of the move, right? And I talked about that this morning when it came to, I had the trades this morning. I missed them, and I didn't want to start pressing or doing something stupid that put me in a detrimental position. So, anyways, that's what I got there. I am parched and hungry. I've been fasting this morning, so, and obviously I'm getting hungry because I keep talking more about food. But anyways, that's what I got for you guys here so far this morning. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for hanging out with me. Appreciate the questions and the engagement, and I'm looking forward to MLT 2.0 with you guys and being in here more and more every single day. I got a new camera coming tomorrow, so this camera setup will change a little bit and make it a little bit better there. I feel like I look a little kind of funky on this one, but either way, currently up about $710. I'll do a breakdown review video later, publish that to YouTube for you guys on everything here. So if you guys enjoyed today, please feel free, give this video a thumbs up on YouTube, leave me a comment in the Discord. If you got profits on the day, post them in the profits chat. I want to see that you guys are actually executing on these and that you're able to post profits. That's my goal here for each and every one of you, and happy to help. So that being said, I will see you guys later on this evening on that breakdown review video, and then tomorrow morning back at it again at 9 a.m. Take care, guys.